Hello guys and welcome to the third C tutorial for Techidin. Now in the previous tutorial we learned how a program gets executed in the computer. Now in this one we are going to learn how to write codes in C. Alright, we are going to first study the structure of a typical C program. So let's get started with that. So the first line that you see here is the hash include stdio.h. Okay, now anything that begins with a hash sign is a preprocessor directive. The preprocessor directives are instructions that will be processed before the program is actually compiled. Okay, um, there are different preprocessor directives like hash define, hash include, etc. Now, in this one, I've used the hash include one directive. Now the hash include directive includes the contents of a file during compilation. Okay. Now, in this case, we have used a header file called stdio.h. Anything that has the extension of .h is actually a header file that we are going to use. So this line hash include stdio.h actually includes the contents of the stdio.h header file. Okay. Now a header file is something that contains information about different library functions. Library functions are those functions that are included within the C. These are predefined functions that we can use in our programs. Now, the printf function that we use here is a library function that is defined within the stdio.h header file. So, to use this function, we must include this stdio.h. Stdio actually stands for standard input and output. Okay, so this header file contains information about input and output functions. One of them is the printf. The next thing is int main. Now int main is actually a function, alright, that we are using. The main is the actual function, int is the return type. Okay, now every C program must contain a function called main. Now, this is the starting point of any program. Now, when the computer is executing a C program, um, the compiler first looks for a function called main. Okay, this is the starting point of any program. So the first method or the first function actually that gets executed is the main. So without main, your C program will not work. So make sure that you always have a main function. Okay. Now we have mentioned int as a return type here. So this means that the program on exiting will return an integer value to the OS. Okay. Um. So if the return value is 0, then this means that the program has executed successfully, and if it's a non-zero value, it generally means that there was an abnormal exit in the program. Okay. Now, one little mistake that I made is that I did not return anything from the program. Okay, so when you've given a return type as int, you should return an integer value. So I'm going to return 0 from here and semicolon. So return 0 will actually return this value to the OS after the program has been executed. Now if you write any code within a function after the return statement, it won't get executed. So make sure that the return statement is always the last statement of your function. Okay. Now the next thing is these braces. Okay. Now a function must begin with a curly brace and end with a curly brace. Now this actually means that the code within these braces are recognized as a separate block of code. So this function is actually a separate block of code in our C program. Okay. And one more thing I forgot to mention is that these parentheses over here are the arguments that the function accepts. Now, arguments are values that can be passed on to this function to work from the beginning. Okay, we'll get into the details of arguments later, but for now, just leave it blank. Now comes the printf function. The printf function is actually used to print something on a console window. Alright, anything written within this double quotes here will be shown on the console window when we run the program. So let me just show you. Now this here, hello there, is printed on the console window. Okay, so the printf is a library function, and we can also use our own created functions, user defined functions. Now remember, the structure of a function is something like this. Now any function, I'm using again the printf function, any function when we are using should be written like this: the function name, then an opening parenthesis and a closing parenthesis, and within that the arguments that will be passed. So actually here, the text that I've written here is the argument that I'm passing to the printf function. Okay, let me give you the structure again. It will be something like this: function name followed by parenthesis, then argument, and the semicolon. Okay, and if we are defining a function like we just defined the main function, it will be something like return type space function name argument. Alright, then an opening and closing curly brace. Now this right here is the structure of a function. Okay, now anything between these curly braces is the code that belongs to this particular function. Okay, so I guess that's it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use variables and different data types that are used in C programming. So stay tuned for more tutorials on C and keep coding.